Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you the stories that matter to you from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I'm Alison Lagrange, live from Durban, South Africa. Let's begin with the top headlines. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi briefs President Draupadi Murmu on Operation Sindoor that targeted the terror infrastructure in Pakistan following the Pahalgam terror attack. India conducts nationwide civil defense drills amid rising tensions with Pakistan. These drills, codenamed Operation Abhyas, are being held across the country following the Pahalgam terror attack on the 22nd of April. A multi-million-dollar US warplane fails to land on the Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier and plummets into the Red Sea, as per the US military. This is the second jet lost from the ship in just over a week. A Kenyan court sentences 4 people, including 2 Belgian teenagers, to 1 year in prison or a fine of more than $7,000 for attempting to smuggle thousands of live rare ants out of the country. And cardinals from around the world gather in the Vatican to elect the next leader of the 1.4 billion member Catholic Church. This follows Pope Francis's death on the 21st of April after prolonged illness. Hello and welcome. We begin with the latest from the Indian subcontinent. A fortnight after the Pakistan-backed terror attack in Pahalgam claimed 26 lives in cold blood, India hit back with a powerful military operation at 1:05 a.m. local time on the 7th of May. In just 25 minutes, Indian ground, air and naval forces struck 24 terror sites across 9 locations in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. The mission, called Operation Sindoor, named after the vermilion worn by married Hindu women, targeted Pakistan-based perpetrators, backers and planners of the Pahalgam attack. The anti-terror operation targeted terror hubs in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir and Pakistan as well. At a press briefing in New Delhi, Indian Foreign Secretary said that the strikes were, quote, measured, proportionate and non-escalatory, unquote. Now, India also referred to a UN Security Council statement on the Pahalgam attack, which called for holding the perpetrators and sponsors accountable. India said Operation Sindoor aligns with that call made by the UNSC on the 25th of April, just 3 days after the Pahalgam attack. New Delhi said the strikes were both a response and a deterrent to future attacks launched from across the border.
Our intelligence monitoring of Pakistan-based terrorist modules indicated that further attacks against India were impending. There was thus a compulsion both to deter and to preempt. Earlier this morning, as you would be aware, India exercised its right to respond and preempt as well as deter more such cross-border attacks.
The Indian Embassy in the US, while explaining the scale of the Indian retaliation, again spelt out Pakistan-backed nature of Pahalgam terror attack. Indian Embassy said New Delhi has, quote, credible leads, technical inputs, testimony of the survivors, and other evidence pointing toward the clear involvement of Pakistan-based terrorists in the Pahalgam attack, unquote. Just like the 2016 surgical strikes and the 2019 Balakot airstrikes, India once again delivered a strong blow to Pakistan's terror infrastructure. Demonstrating a clear resolve against cross-border terrorism, America's increasingly reliable partner in the Indo-Pacific has delivered a clear warning through these overnight strikes. Now, for more on this, we have with us former Indian diplomat Rakesh Sood. Ambassador Sood, welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you.
Now, India's Operation Sindoor was described as measured, proportionate, and non-escalatory. Now, given the scale and the speed of the strikes, what strategic message is India sending, not just to Pakistan, but also to global powers and terror networks operating in the region?
Well, the message is to three audiences. The message is to three separate audiences. First, it is the domestic audience. Then it is Pakistan. And then it is the wider international audience. So there was, for the domestic audience, there has been a certain expectation that there would be kinetic retaliation. And obviously, the expectation would be that this would be more than what was attempted in the past, as you recall, in 2016 with the surgical strikes, and in 2019 with the airstrike on a terrorist camp. So this time, the magnitude had to be bigger in order to address domestic expectations. The second was the message to Pakistan, which, as the Foreign Secretary mentioned in his briefing, was that Indian action was measured, it was non-escalatory, it was proportionate, and it was responsible. No military sites were targeted. I mean, that was the key message. And then there is obviously the message to the international community, which is that Pakistan has to be held responsible for for actions of cross-border terrorism that India has suffered over decades. And that Pakistan seems to be getting away with it because there is a whole long list of such attacks which India has had, and pretty heinous ones. And therefore, but Pakistan has somehow or the other always had some kind of allies or friends protecting it in the Security Council, which has prevented it from being held to task for this. And so these were the three separate messages from the action.
Yes. And Ambassador, India has framed the operation within the context of the UN Security Council's call for accountability following the Pahalgam attack. To what extent does this international framing provide legal or diplomatic cover for preemptive strikes across the border?
I think that in terms of international law, if you look at it as something where we were expecting, based on intelligence, which is what the Foreign Secretary suggested, that we were preempting, that we had enough intelligence to indicate to us that there were terrorists who were gathering together to infiltrate across towards the Indian side. And so therefore, this could be counted as legitimate self-defense. At the same time, the fact that no military sites were targeted would point to the fact that India acted in a responsible and restrained fashion. And I think that is where the message is. So the message is also that we do not wish to escalate this beyond a point. However, this was necessary. So you have to look at all the three audiences, or addressing the requirements of all the three audiences together in a single action.
Yeah. And considering Pakistan's possible response and the complex dynamics in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, how might this operation affect the already fragile regional stability? And could it potentially derail back-channel peace efforts or draw in external actors like the US or China?
Well, today, I do not know if there is a back channel operating between India and Pakistan. Insofar as the ceasefire on the line of control is concerned, that has already frayed. You know, for the last 2 weeks or so, we have been seeing heavy artillery firing across the line of control. So I think that ceasefire is history.
Yes.
Now it comes to the fact, will Pakistan retaliate? Now, the fact is that in 2019, Pakistan did retaliate the following morning. They mounted an airstrike on India. However, they also put out a statement saying that they had exercised their right because their sovereignty had been violated. They had exercised their right to retaliation. They had also demonstrated their capability, but as a mark of their responsibility and not to escalate further, they had dropped their munitions not on military targets, but in fields on the Indian side. And that enabled both sides to sort of claim victory. India, of course, one of our pilots ended up, he ejected and he was on the other side. He was captured by the Pakistanis. The Pakistanis then handed him back and said that they did it as a humanitarian gesture. This was a mark of their responsible behavior. So they could claim victory. We claimed victory that we had targeted terrorist camp and destroyed and neutralized a large number of terrorists. So the challenge with this is that I do think that Pakistan will retaliate. The challenge will be to ensure that whatever the outcome of the Pakistani retaliation, it enables both sides to come out of it with a face saver without it leading to an unintended escalation, because I think neither side wants to escalate. But a face saver is essential for both
Ambassador,
sides.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for being with us on First Post. Now, India's strikes on terror camps in Pakistan have brought a sense of justice and emotional relief to the families of those killed in the Pahalgam terror attack on the 22nd of April. The strikes, avenging the deaths of 26 innocent people, are being seen by the victims' families as a befitting response to the sacrifice made by their family members. In Maharashtra, Asavari Jagdale, the daughter of Santosh Jagdale, one of the victims of the deadly attack, was visibly emotional as she thanked Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the action taken. Listen in.
ये नाम पढ़ के तो हम बहुत रो रहे थे सुबह, और मुझे लगता है कि जो मेरे पिताजी का या फिर जितने भी उधर बच्चे थे उन सबके पिताजी और जितनी भी औरतें थे उनके पतियों का जो मतलब जान ली गई, तो उनका ये मरण जो था वो वेस्ट नहीं हुआ, और मुझे लगता है ये उनके लिए आज सच में दी गई एक श्रद्धांजलि है जो भारत ने एयर स्ट्राइक करके की है.
In West Bengal, Salbori Guha, the wife of Pahalgam attack victim Samir Guha, said that Pakistan must be entirely eliminated.
पूरा पाकिस्तान को उड़ा देना चाहिए, क्योंकि इसको खत्म नहीं करने से फिर से ये जो इंसिडेंट हुआ था फिर से होगा.
Sanjay Dwivedi, the father of Shubman Dwivedi, another victim of the attack, said the Indian Army's move has instilled a sense of faith in the government.
मैं रात 2 बजे से लगातार देख रहा हूं और मैं सलाम करता हूं अपने देश की सेना को और धन्यवाद अर्पित करता हूं अपने देश के माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी को, जिन्होंने देश की 140 करोड़ जनता के मन की बात को समझा, दिल के दर्द को समझा, उसके दर्द को समझा, उसके गुस्सा को समझा, और जिस तरह हमारी सशक्त सेनाओं ने अदम्य साहस और शौर्य के साथ पाकिस्तान में पल रहे आतंकवाद का विनाश करने का काम किया है, उसके लिए मैं सलाम करता हूं, मैं धन्यवाद अर्पित करता हूं हमारे देश की सरकार को.
Shubham Dwivedi's wife also thanked the government for avenging her husband's death. Listen in.
धन्यवाद करती हूँ, उनसे बहुत थैंक यू कहती हूँ कि उन्होंने मेरे पति की मौत का बदला लिया है. जिस तरीके से हमारे पूरे परिवार को उन पे विश्वास था, उन्होंने उसी तरीके से जवाब देके हमारे विश्वास को कायम रखा है. एंड आई एम रियली थैंकफुल.
In Haryana, Rajesh Narwal, the father of the Indian Navy Lieutenant Vinay Narwal, who lost his life in the attack, said that with this move, all the 26 families have got their justice.
भारत सरकार ने जो ये कदम उठाया है, ये बिल्कुल सही किया है और उनके 9 ठिकानों पर आज जो एक कड़ा प्रहार किया है, इसको वो सदैव उनके जहन में गूंजता रहेगा ये।
From Gujarat to Karnataka, family members of those killed in the attack have praised the strikes as a strong and timely response to Pakistan's terror networks. They say the Indian Army and Prime Minister Modi have kept their word and did not let their loved ones' sacrifice go in vain. And it's not just the victims' families who have thanked Prime Minister Modi. Those who survived the Pahalgam terror horror also lauded the government.
इंडियन आर्मी को थैंक यू। एक्चुअल में जो कार्रवाई उन्होंने की है बहुत अच्छी की है, हम उससे समाधान है, खुश संतुष्टि है। जो उन्होंने आतंकवादी निरपराध लोगों को मारे थे वहाँ पे, नज़ारा था बहुत भयंकर था। वो नज़ारा हमने अपनी आंखों से देखा और अनुभव किया, लेकिन आज हमें संतुष्टि है कि जो उन्होंने इंडियन आर्मी ने बदला लिया वो ठीक है और आगे भी लेते रहेंगे और उनको सबक सिखाया जाएगा।
Meanwhile, people across the country are hailing New Delhi's strikes against Pakistan. In Jammu and Kashmir, locals were seen raising "Long Live Indian Army" slogans after the news broke of the strikes. Tourists also flocked to Pahalgam, saying they now feel safer, knowing that the Indian Army has responded firmly to the attack. So as reactions continue to pour in, families of the victims say this is more than just a retaliation. It is a clear warning to Pakistan that India will always hit back hard against terrorism. And India's military action against terrorist infrastructure in Pakistan, as well as Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, was hailed at home. Top ministers in Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government, including Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, hailed the anti-terror operation in Sindoor and posted on social media, "Bharat Mata Ki Jai," meaning victory to Mother India. Home Minister Amit Shah said the Modi government is resolved to give a befitting response to any attack on India and its people. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar also took to social media and said the world now must show zero tolerance for terror. Shortly after the Indian strikes, the US President Donald Trump also suggested he was not taken by surprise. Listen in.
No, it's a shame. We just heard about it just as we were walking in the doors of the Oval. Just heard about it. I guess people knew something was going to happen based on a little bit of the past. They've been fighting for a long time. You know, they've been fighting for many, many decades and centuries, actually, if you really think about it. No, I just hope it ends very quickly.
Indian diplomats simultaneously stormed into action just after these strikes. The National Security Advisor, Ajit Doval, spoke with his American counterpart and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, and briefed him on the actions taken. Secretary Marco Rubio said on social media platform X that Washington will continue to engage with both India and Pakistan toward, quote-unquote, a peaceful resolution. Apart from the US, Australia and Japan, India's partners in the Quadrilateral Security Alliance, or Quad, also urged New Delhi and Islamabad to exercise restraint. Closer in India's extended neighbourhood, Israel called Operation Sindoor an act of self-defence by India. Israel said the terrorists must know there is no place to hide from their heinous crimes against the innocent. China fell short of coming out in full-fledged support of its supposed all-weather ally, Pakistan, and urged both New Delhi and Islamabad to, quote, prioritize peace and stability, unquote. The United Arab Emirates, India's key partner in West Asia, urged restraint from both New Delhi and Islamabad to avoid further escalation. The United Nations also urged both countries to exercise restraint and to de-escalate tensions. Meanwhile, the Indian embassy in the US, while explaining the scale of the Indian retaliation, again spelt out the Pakistan-backed nature of the Pahalgam terror attack. Indian embassy said New Delhi has quote-unquote credible leads, technical inputs, testimony of the survivors, and other evidence pointing toward the clear involvement of Pakistan-based terrorists in the Pahalgam attack, unquote. India said it was expecting Pakistan would take action against terrorists and the infrastructure that supports them. Instead, India pointed out that in the last 2 weeks since the Pahalgam terror attack, Pakistan indulged in denial and made allegations of false flag operations against India. As the world comes to terms with this evolving anti-terror reality of the Indian subcontinent, and Islamabad puts its half-hearted effort to garner global sympathy, India's terror-exporting neighbor stands decimated inside its self-created dock of terrorism. The aftershock of Operation Sindoor continues, and it's not just being felt on the ground, but also in the skies over India and Pakistan. Airspace in northern parts of India have been tightened. Flight services have taken a massive hit. Officials have shut down several airports, including Laud, Jammu, Amritsar, Dharamshala. They remain closed until further notice. All civil flights at Srinagar Airport have been halted, and commercial airlines have issued urgent travel advisories covering arrivals, departures, and possible diversions. Passengers have been advised to check their flight status regularly and to reach out to airlines for refunds or rebookings. Tweets from airlines have been pouring in, alerting travelers in real time. And operations at the Indira Gandhi International Airport in Delhi were among the worst affected. At least 113 flights had been delayed, and 98 incoming and outgoing flights were cancelled, causing major inconvenience for passengers. Travellers reported long queues and confusion at departure terminals. And now let's turn to the other side of the border. Reports say that key airports in Pakistan, including Lahore and Sialkot, remain closed for the next 48 hours. Airspace maps, too, painted a very grim picture. Pakistan's skies are virtually empty. A dense trail of planes can be seen curving far to the south, rerouting over Iran, the Arabian Sea, and through air corridors over the UAE. Among international carriers, Qatar Airways was the latest to temporarily suspend flights to Pakistan. Others, including Air France, Lufthansa, Emirates, and British Airways, are now avoiding Pakistan's airspace entirely. This situation is a stark reminder of how quickly tensions between two nuclear-armed states can escalate, and how dangerous it can be when a state shelters terror and then scrambles to dodge accountability. India's Operation Sindoor was launched in response to the Pahalgam massacre. While it was successful, it also shows the world when terror is allowed to thrive, it doesn't just endanger lives. It disrupts the very pathways that connect the world. Now, we'll continue to track the developments. Stay on with us. And finally, let's shift focus to stock markets, which have been on the edge ever since tensions escalated between New Delhi and Islamabad. India's benchmark indices, the Sensex and the Nifty 50, closed higher today in the aftermath of the Operation Sindoor. The BSE Sensex closed 0.13% higher, while the Nifty 50 rose 0.14%. This came after both indices opened lower this morning. The BSE Sensex lost 0.86% at market open today, while the Nifty 50 fell by 0.6%. Meanwhile, Pakistan's stock market took a much harder hit. Pakistan's key stock market index, Karachi 100, tumbled by 6,272 points, or over 5.5%, in the early hours of Wednesday. Since the terror attack in Pahalgam on the 22nd of April, the Karachi Stock Exchange has reportedly lost around 3.7%, while India's Sensex has gained approximately 1.5%. But today's strikes, carried out by the Indian Armed Forces, triggered a sharper and immediate reaction in Pakistan's markets, a clear sign that investors there are worried about escalation. But India's markets have largely held steady, with investors taking a cautious, measured approach. Early indicators before markets opened today reflected that the SGX Nifty, a futures contract based on India's Nifty 50 index, traded in Singapore, fell 1.2% early on Wednesday, but trimmed losses to just 0.2% later. Throughout the day, Indian markets remained subdued, but avoided any knee-jerk reaction. Why the calm? Experts say that peak anxiety over India-Pakistan tensions may be behind Indian investors for now, and that Pakistan may not escalate the conflict further given its lack of economic muscle. Moreover, historical data from the last 2 decades shows India's equity markets typically rebound quickly from such geopolitical events with little long-term impact. On the 26th of February 2019, when the Indian Air Force struck terror camps in Balakot, the Sensex fell by 239 points and the Nifty 50 shed 44 points, but the markets were quick to bounce back the very next day. In 2016, after the surgical strikes on Pakistan terror camps following the Uri attack, the Sensex slid by over 400 points and the Nifty 50 lost 156 in a single session. Yet markets bounced back in the days that followed. So while markets may fluctuate in the short term, India's strategic and military posture seems unwavering. The big question now remains, how will Pakistan respond? And that's all we have on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on Firstpost.